The Dolphins dropped 70 points. The Cardinals beat the Dallas Cowboys. We have a lot to talk about, but the first thing that I want to discuss, and I want to get this out of the way, and it is the hardest thing to talk about, and it is the most embarrassing thing to bring up. But I started Joshua Kelly, ladies and gentlemen. I did it last week. You would have thought that I learned my lesson. You would have thought that I was smart enough to not make that same mistake. But here we are, yet again, in week 3, back-to-back weeks now, I played Joshua Kelly. As if it was bad enough, we played him week 2, right? And I told you to play him as well. There were a lot of people who listen to us, and this is why I feel so damn bad about it and why it's the most embarrassing thing in the world. But last week, week 2, the Los Angeles Chargers scored a zillion points, and Joshua Kelly had every single touch in the backfield. I went, oh, okay. In a better matchup, one that he doesn't go up against the Tennessee Titans rush defense, a rush defense that Jerome Ford scores multiple touchdowns against. We'll talk about that a little later on. Joshua Kelly will do better. It's a super high-scoring game against the Chargers-Vikings. Joshua Kelly is going to get every single touch. Let's start him. And yeah, Kelly may have seen every snap. He played 49 snaps compared to Isaiah Spiller at 16. He may have seen every touch. He had the 11 carries out of the backfield. May have seen every target. But fundamentally, it does not matter. He is not good. There is no reason for me to start him. I should have learned my lesson. It is the most embarrassing thing in the world that I went through this past week, and I said no Austin Eckler means that Joshua Kelly is a must start in a much better game environment, in a much better matchup. As Kelly goes out there, he has 11 carries, 12 rushing yards, 1 reception for 5 receiving yards. I am so damn sorry. I promise you I'm going to try to do better next time, and I owe you another big apology later on in this video that I do not want to have to talk about, but the rest of this game is exciting. You had Justin Herbert going out there, 47 pass attempts, 40 completions, over 400 passing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. I mean, hell, you even had a passing touchdown coming from Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen sees 20 targets, 18 receptions, 215 receiving yards in this offense, and throws that bomb to Mike Williams as a 50-yard passing touchdown. Keenan Allen, nutso game here. Going over to Mike Williams looked great as well. Mike Williams over 100 receiving yards. The receiving touchdown is an offense that obviously has so much passing volume. Now, with that being said, Mike Williams did get hurt in this game. This will be something that we're having to talk about in our waiver wire video tomorrow when we're looking at Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston. So I'll update y'all with the video tomorrow and looking at how we're going to be making that adjustment. So please just make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Now, going over to what we have on the Minnesota Vikings. With Alexander Madison, once Akers was ruled out, he was a must-start running back. He looked great. The man had every single snap. Now, do I think Alexander Madison's all of a sudden a running back we can be pumped about? No. With Alexander Madison, this was because you had no Akers. Once Akers is in next week, I do think this is a running back by committee, and I think it's going to be a little bit tougher to rely on Alexander Madison. With Cousins, you still have all the passing volume in the world. Like we said, coming into this season, Kirk Cousins could easily lead the NFL in pass attempts. He had 50 passing attempts this week. You had 150 receiving yards and the receiving touchdown for Justin Jefferson. You had 11 targets for TJ Hawkinson. You had 8 targets for Jordan Addison. And what's very interesting is KJ Osborne is actually trending in the wrong direction in this offense with targets. He still ran more routes. He still had more snaps than Jordan Addison, but Addison is ticking up while KJ Osborne is ticking down. We'll be very excited about Addison next week. Now, going over to our next game, the Commanders, the Buffalo Bills. With the Washington side of things, I mean, I don't know what the takeaway here is. Is it A, Sam Howell is not good? Sam Howell had 4 interceptions today, 1 million sacks. Or is it B, this Buffalo Bills defense is elite? That's definitely a possibility. I mean, we saw the Bills lead Josh Jacobs to negative rushing yards in week 2. I will say from a per touch perspective, Brian Robinson looked so damn good in this game if you were actually watching it. He only had 10 carries, but he did have 70 rushing yards at the end of the day. And going over to the Buffalo side of things, I mean, not too much to discuss. You have a lot of production for a lot of different players. Josh Allen does get a rushing touchdown. A little frustrating that at the end of the day, you don't really have goal line work for James Cook yet again. You have Latavius Murray getting the rushing touchdown in this offense. Stephon Diggs dominates. Gabe Davis gets you a touchdown. I mean, obviously, you know, you're excited about these guys. I will say, quick side note, Dalton Kincaid, still not startable. Still splitting this tight end room with Dawson Knox. Now, going over to the Jets game. With the Jets, y'all know the second that Aaron Rodgers went down, we are screaming, sell Breece Hall, sell Breece Hall, sell Breece Hall. It doesn't matter how talented he is. He's in a 3-man running back by committee in the worst offense in the NFL. Well, Breece Hall is actually trending in the right direction. If you look at this graph from PFF, all these graphs will be from PFF, you see that Breece Hall actually plays 50% of the snaps in this New York Jets backfield this past week. Is 100% trending in the right direction, where you only have Michael Carter with 15 snaps, Dalvin Cook with 16. Breece Hall looks like he is the guy. Now, fundamentally, does this matter? Probably not, right? Breece Hall has 12 rushes for 18 rushing yards. And is this the fault of Breece Hall? No, this is not the fault of Breece Hall, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you have Zach Wilson, as arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL. This team had like 60 snaps at one point and had like 70 total yards. It was absurd. It was hilarious. And with this New York Jets offense, you can't rely on anybody going forward, even if Breece Hall is trending in the right direction. Hopefully, Cousins gets traded to the Jets. Now, going over to the New England Patriots side of things, if you are looking at the Pats here, nobody really reliable outside of maybe Ramondre Stevenson. But even in the instance of Ramondre, you still have Ezekiel Elliott with 27 snaps. You still have Ezekiel Elliott with 16 carries to Ramondre Stevenson at 19. It was a little frustrating as well. So Ramondre had 4 targets out of this backfield, but still only 1 reception, 3 receiving yards. Now, full PPR format because of the usage as a receiver. Keep in mind, he did run 22 routes today. I think you still start Ramondre Stevenson, but obviously no pass catcher here in New England you're excited about. Now, going over to the Texans side of things, what's actually a little encouraging is not that CJ Stroud looks great, but also the Damien Pierce usage is trending in the right direction. In this game, Mike Boone saw 4 snaps, Devin Singletary 22, Damien Pierce saw 30 out of 56. So this is the first game where Damien Pierce has seen over the 50% of the snaps for the Houston Texans. Keep in mind, this Texans offensive line will hopefully continue to get healthier and healthier as the season goes forward. And if Damien Pierce continues to take a larger slice of this backfield, he may be viable in fantasy. Now, he wasn't great today. He only had 31 rushing yards and the rushing touchdown. He gave you some involvement as a receiver. Now, of course, CJ Stroud looks pretty damn good, ladies and gentlemen. And also, Tank Dell looks like he is arguably the wide receiver 1. Y'all know we told a lot of people to bench Nico Collins just because if you looked at the target distribution between Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Robert Woods, really are spreading it around this offense. So I feel like we're going to be saying a lot of the same thing this next week. Now, 100%, you pick up Tank Dell. He's 100% worth the waiver wire spot, but I'm not going to be rushing to go out there and start him immediately in week 4. Definitely on pace to be a way better rookie than I thought. If you look at the historical data, we've never seen a player this small actually be a league-winning option in fantasy. But if he continues to trend in this direction, he's probably pretty damn exciting. Just too early to start him this week. Now, going over to the Jags side of things, Lawrence continues to struggle. Now, Calvin Ridley had an injury scare earlier in the game. Looks like Calvin Ridley is going to be fine. But fundamentally, Lawrence at the end of the day had 40 passing attempts, 279 passing yards, a passing touchdown, and an INT. If you're looking at the volume in this offense, you had a little bit going everywhere. You had 8 targets going to Evan Ingram. You had 6 going to Christian Kirk. You had 5 going to Travis Etienne. And you had Calvin Ridley coming away with 7. Now, if we're looking at the usage for these running backs, what is so damn frustrating, y'all know I was all in on Etienne this year. Think he's a superb running back. We were getting him in round 4 of underdog drafts. Is if we were looking at Etienne, this was a running back that I was saying, oh, okay, well, at the end of the day, he is going to be more involved as a receiver. I'm not too worried about Tank Bigsby's overall role. And yeah, Tank Bigsby in this game only played 9 total snaps. But Bigsby did vulture the rushing touchdown. So it was already a very big day from Travis Etienne. Could have been an even bigger day. Super frustrating, that Tank Bigsby rushing touchdown. It was at the goal line too. Now, real quick, my favorite pick'ems for the game tomorrow are going to be Mike Evans for more than 4 receptions and Puka Nacua for more than 64.5 receiving yards. If you want to check those out, you can find them on Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get your first deposit match dollar for dollar up to $500. Plus, you'll be getting a special Joe Burrow pick'em more than less than half a passing yard against the Rams. If he doesn't play, they'll switch it to Stafford. And on top of that, you'll be getting our rest of season fantasy football rankings. And we are going to be giving away a ton of Flock fantasy ads for people who use promo code FLOCK on Underdog. So make sure you take advantage of that. As going over to the Packers side of things, this is where I owe the next apology, right? I mean, we can get this sign back up. I want to remind everybody, yes, I started Joshua Kelly. I was that idiot who fell for it 2 weeks in a row. And like I said, I owe everybody a massive apology. It's ruined my day. And honestly, I am so damn sorry. And I'm going to try to make sure I don't have a horrendous call like that again. But another horrendous call I had was A.J. Dillon. I don't know why. A.J. Dillon, another running back that week 2 got every single snap, every single touch. I convinced myself was maybe going to rebound, maybe going to be good in this offense. And A.J. Dillon was not, ladies and gentlemen. A.J. Dillon, a whopping 11 carries, which was pretty much the entire backfield, but still only 33 rushing yards and no involvement at all as a receiver. Didn't matter that he runs 21 routes. He draws a total of 0 targets. Now, going over to the receiver side of things, Jaden Reed had previously been the team's number 1 wide receiver with no Christian Watson in this offense, but that was actually taken over from Romeo Doubs today, where Doubs had 12 targets. He had the receiving touchdown. He had 73 receiving yards. Now, should we run out there and should we add Romeo Doubs and start him immediately this next week? Probably not, right? We probably do need to continue to monitor Christian Watson. A little concerning that Jordan Love looked a little bit worse in this game. The Packers still managed to win, and keep in mind, that was with no Aaron Jones and Christian Watson. Now, going over to the Saints side of things, very tough to take too much away from this game because you had a Derek Carr injury. The Saints were clearly leading until Derek Carr went down. I will update y'all tomorrow with the update that we have with Carr and the timetable we're currently looking at. From what I saw on Twitter today, which keep in mind, very instant reaction, is saying that he's not going to have structural damage. It shouldn't be like a very serious injury for Derek Carr. But nonetheless, outside of that, if you are looking at the running back usage here, you did have Kondre Miller, Tony Jones pretty much split in the backfield. You had some, snaps where you didn't have either running back. Taysom Hill had some rushing involvement. Now, if you're looking at this, nothing really changes. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas getting a ton of target volume. Not really interested in Shaheed outside of best ball. So please don't think he's all of a sudden some guy you're starting as a wide receiver 3. Olave had 11 targets. Michael Thomas had 9. And honestly, I think with the way that things are currently trending, Michael Thomas may end up being a buy low wide receiver for us. Now, going over to the Baltimore Ravens side of things, we are going to be looking at a wide receiver in Zay Flowers that I was a little bit hesitant to start going into this week just because the volume that he had seen week 1 without Mark Andrews versus the volume that he saw with Mark Andrews in week 2. Well, Zay Flowers is taking over, ladies and gentlemen. The man has 10 targets. Now, with those targets, he doesn't really do a lot with them. He only has 48 receiving yards. Keep in mind, this will be a low-volume passing attack overall. Still love Lamar Jackson. Y'all know I drafted the hell out of Lamar, but the reason being is because the rushing production. Lamar over 100 rushing yards, multiple rushing touchdowns as well. I will say, incredible game from a week 3 rookie wide receiver in Flowers to lead the team in targets the way he did, though. Now, going over to the Colts side of things, no surprise with the running back room. You have Zach Moss getting everything. Zach Moss, 30 carries, 122 rushing yards. Zach Moss, 3 targets with the receiving touchdown out of this backfield as well. The fact that I ranked Joshua Kelly over him, laughably bad, horrendous. I am never going to be able to forgive myself. And if you look at Zach Moss as a running back that this next week will yet again, just like this week, be a must-start running back with no Jonathan Taylor. Now, obviously, when we get Taylor back in week 5, then we can go through and we can reevaluate. But as of now, he looks like a locked and loaded stud. Super interesting as well to see Josh Downs get 12 targets. We will be talking about Josh Downs in our waiver wire video tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe. Now, going over to the Browns side of things, if we are looking at the Cleveland Browns, I was not ready to start Jerome Ford right away. The reason being is I was sitting here going, okay, they probably split the backfield. And at the same time, really tough rushing matchup for Jerome Ford. And yeah, Ford only had, 18 rushing yards. Like, Jerome Ford wasn't anything special as a rusher, but sometimes when you have the goal line roll, you are going to get there, ladies and gentlemen. Jerome Ford has 18 rushing yards, but gets the rushing touchdown and also has a receiving touchdown. So he bails out everybody who started him in fantasy. Now, going forward, I actually think Jerome Ford, obviously still the starting running back here in Cleveland, but I do think he is in that committee like we talked about with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, we had the report coming into the week saying that he was going to be on the snap count, and we saw that being played out. Keep in mind, Kareem Hunt was not with the team 4 days ago, where Kareem Hunt only plays 14 snaps, and he only has a combined, 7 touches in this offense, whereas Jerome Ford, you were looking at 12 touches. So you had 7 touches for Ford. 12 touches for Ford, 7 touches for Kareem Hunt. And then with Pierre Strong, you had 6 touches. So I do think that this is a running back by committee where, yes, Jerome Ford may be the lead back, seeing about 60%, but I think Hunt and Pierre Strong will see about 40% in this backfield going forward. So maybe a sell high moment if we're going to be looking at Jerome Ford with the 18 rushing yards and the multiple touchdowns. Now, the Tennessee side of things here is very interesting to look at, considering the fact that Derrick Henry goes out there and plays 17 snaps in this game. 17 snaps. Tajee Spears is at 27. The reason being is the Tennessee Titans are not competitive. This is a team that trails the game from start to finish. And yeah, we've seen that in every 2-minute drill situation, Tajee Spears will be out there. I mean, Derrick Henry was on the field for 0 third downs today, for 0 snaps with the 2-minute drill. So I don't know. At this point, I mean, would you sell Derrick Henry for Jonathan Taylor? I probably would. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, a running back I was really hoping had a shot to go to the Miami Dolphins, where it looks like Miami's coming out here and saying, you know what? Yeah, JT, we don't need you, big fella. Hell, Jalen Waddle, we don't need you either. Let's go through this. This is the most absurd thing I've ever seen. Tua, 4 passing touchdowns. Mike White, the passing touchdown to go alongside. You have 5 total passing touchdowns in Miami. And you have 10 total touchdowns if we look at the 5 rushing as well. Devon Achane, 203 rushing yards. Multiple rushing touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, 3 rushing touchdowns. We go down to the receiving side. Raheem Mostert, a receiving touchdown. Devon Achane, 2 receiving touchdowns. You have the running backs here in Miami. If my math is correct, this does not seem real, but you carry the 1, maybe 6 total touchdowns between these. More than that, no. 8 total touchdowns for these Miami running backs. Absurd to see this. It will be very interesting going forward when you get Jeff Wilson Jr. back in and seeing how they decide to split this backfield. I don't know. We'll have to dive in a little bit more of this tonight and break it down with our running back waiver wire video tomorrow. But the Miami Dolphins offense looks like the best offense in the NFL right now, and it doesn't. I guess maybe the Chiefs are close, but still, going over to the Broncos side of things, the Broncos defense looks like one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I mean, they just let every team drop a zillion points on them. Courtland Sutton, great day, 11 targets. Jerry Jeudy did expand his role. Jerry Jeudy, 7 targets. You're seeing Jeudy's snaps go up in this offense, being 1 week further removed from the hamstring injury. I don't really want to look at the running back usage too in depth. I don't think it's going to be that valuable just because this game was such a blowout that really I think the only thing we can be looking at in Denver is going to be the receiving volume. Now, going over to the Atlanta Falcons side of things, what is very interesting, if you look at this chart from PFF, you will see that Kyle Pitts and his overall snaps in this offense trending in the right direction. Kyle Pitts up and up and up to the right. Kyle Pitts also leads this team in targets with 9. Kyle Pitts is still not viable in fantasy, dropping 5 receptions, 41 receiving yards. Bijan Robinson this week, not even viable in fantasy because Desmond Ridder was just atrocious. Desmond Ridder missed Kyle Pitts on what could have been like a 90-yard receiving touchdown. I mean, I don't know how we can be excited about anybody here in Atlanta outside of Bijan going forward. And even Bijan, it looks like a tough spot if this offense is going to be so bad. Now, going over to the Detroit side of things, with Jahmyr Gibbs, he takes over. He sees more than 50% of this backfield. And keep in mind, not really a Jahmyr Gibbs type game environment, right? You want Gibbs in the shootout. You want Gibbs where Jared Goff's going out there and he's having to drop back consistently. I mean, at the end of the day, Jahmyr Gibbs does see the 17 rushing attempts, 80 rushing yards, but he only has 2 targets out of this backfield. So really, Gibbs had a fine day, but not going to be the best day from Gibbs that we see going forward. You really want him in those full-blown shootouts where he's going to be utilized as a receiver. The main thing to look at in Detroit will be Sam Laporta continuing to come on. Sam Laporta putting up one of the most impressive rookie tight end seasons that we have seen over the past decade, dropping 8 receptions for 84 receiving yards and the receiving touchdown off of 11 targets. Sam Laporta, it's embarrassing that we did not rank him as a top 6-ish tight end this week. Promise you he's not going to be a low-end tight end 1 in our rankings this week. He'll be a mid tight end 1 with upside. Now, going over the Carolina side of things, not too much we can take away. I mean, ultimately, you had Andy Dalton in here. Adam Thielen continues to dominate. DJ Chark looks great. Miles Sanders gets a lot of involvement as a receiver as well. But can we take away and go, okay, Adam Thielen, 14 targets. DJ Chark, 11 targets. Miles Sanders, 9 targets. Terrace Marshall, 8 targets. Jonathan Mingo, 6 targets. All these guys are great going. No. In reality, Andy Dalton had 58 pass attempts. Do we expect the Carolina Panthers to have 58 passing attempts per game going forward? Nope, we don't. Adam Thielen, still a phenomenal play. Looks like Thielen is definitely in flex consideration going forward. Was a little bit of an outlier type game from Carolina, though. And going over to Seattle, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, both look so damn good. I mean, if you're looking at these two backs, Zach Charbonnet doesn't really show up in the box score, but just if you're turning on the football game, I mean, he looks so good where both of them are averaging over 5 yards per attempt. Now, you do have Kenneth Walker coming away with multiple rushing touchdowns as well this week. And Kenneth Walker, 59 receiving yards off of 3 receptions. Super pumped about Kenneth Walker from a week-to-week perspective. Also can be very excited about what we have in terms of the upside for Zach Charbonnet. If Walker were to go down, looks like Charbonnet would be a league winner. Now, going over to the Dallas side of things, I would say the Dallas Cowboys, one of the more disappointing losses so far this year. Probably a lot of teams that got knocked out of survivor pools by going through and taking the Cowboys against the Cardinals. But nonetheless, Pollard sees absolutely everything in this offense. Pollard, 23 carries. I mean, the next best running back had 0, it looks like. Now, going over to the receiving side of things, Pollard not really involved. I mean, Pollard 3 receptions, -1 receiving yards. You had CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and Michael Gallup all targeting for the team lead with 7 targets. It's a really gross game for Dallas overall. And going over to the Arizona side of things, very interesting game environment where you have 30 rushing attempts for only 21 passing yards for the Arizona Cardinals. So what they decide to do is they decide, okay, let's go ahead, let's slow this game down. Let's run as few plays as possible because obviously the more plays, the higher the probability that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this game. So, yeah, I mean, the game plan that they had, just run, worked effectively. Hollywood Brown, decent game, 7 targets. What is interesting to see is Zach Ertz, who is leading the NFL in targets going into this contest, completely falls off. I mean, Zach Ertz with 2 targets in this game. Now, going over to what we have in Chicago, we have Justin Fields with an absolute meltdown. And I think we could say at this point, not only is Justin Fields a horrendous real-life quarterback, which I've said for years and people have screamed at me for years about, but I thought Justin Fields was going to be fine in fantasy based off his rushing upside. Fields simply is not running the ball enough. 47 rushing yards ain't getting it done, bud. I mean, you need to go out there and you need to average 70 rushing yards per game if we were to see another game with 99 passing yards, a passing touchdown, and an INT. I mean, this was a game that was arguably a bigger blowout than the Dolphins and Broncos, if that was even possible. Going over to the Chiefs side of things, no Chiefs receivers remain interesting. I mean, how many pass catchers and how many skill positional players touch the ball overall? We have Pacheco, CEH, McKinnon, Kelsey, Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, MVS, McKinnon, Noah Gray, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney. You have 12 skill positional guys touching the ball in KC. I mean, even the running backs, every single guy scores a touchdown, but you can't rely on, them to continue to do that going forward. I think we're going to maintain our fact that these guys are interesting in best ball, given how good their offense is. But fundamentally, in your shallow redraft format, really the only guys you're going to be starting from week-to-week perspective will be Mahomes and Travis Kelce, just because they are slicing this pie in so many different pieces. But I think that should be it for this video. I'm going to get y'all a waiver wire video tomorrow morning. So please subscribe to the channel if you are not already. If you have not done so already, make sure you go check out those pick'ems we have over on Underdog Fantasy. Go for the more than 4 receptions on Mike Evans and the more than 46.5 receiving yards for Puka Nacua. With promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match up to $500, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and a Joe Burrow special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard against the Rams. If he doesn't play, they'll switch it to Stafford. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. I really hope you have a great day, and I really hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow morning.